an opening video just like I usually do. Now I usually try to have more current videos. This one is pretty old, almost 100 years old, can't believe it, 1936. And what it is, it's a video of a production process. It's actually a caricature of a production process. And this was right in the middle of when Henry Ford and Henry Ford's mass production system was kind of at the height of being world class at the time. And so you're gonna get to see kind of what that's about. The reason that I wanna show you this video is that what you're gonna see here, the way that the process is configured, the way that the workers interact with each other, the way managers interact with the workers, this kind of exemplifies the mass production mindset, which is one concept that I want you to understand for this class. The mass production mindset, what you end up seeing in this video is really more along the lines of what all of us grew up with, understanding how processes work and how productivity and quality are improved. So you're gonna get to sense that here. As we go through, I want you to be looking for some specific things in the video as we watch, okay? So watch for who is gonna make the decision about what we make and how much we make. Okay, so there's someone that makes that decision. You can see them in the video. The workers and the management are going to interact with each other. So try to figure out what that relationship is like. How does the manager look at the employees? What do they how do they view them? The employees themselves are going to interact with one another. What sort of interactions do they have with each other? Okay, so see that. At one point in the video, there's a production line, and at some point in the video, the production line stops. And when the production line stops, then there's a reason why it stops. And I want you to, it's pretty, you'll have to look to see it, but I want to see if you can figure out why that production line stopped. All right, so that's what we're talking about today. And then this last thing, this is really what our whole class is about. So we'll see that in a minute. Okay, so let's watch this. Executive's office. This is where you'll want to be one day, doing crossword puzzles, and this is what executives do, right? Reading the comics. I don't know why we're popping pills, but that was part of it. Using fancy technology.
Section 5, speed her up, 401. Attention foreman, trouble on bench 5, check on the nut tightness. Nuts coming through loose on bench 5, attention foreman.
Is this Charlie Chaplin? right. That is Charlie Chaplin. So we're going to talk about the video here in a second because that really does. It's a lot of companies are still, most companies actually, are still managed and run very much just like that. So first I want to talk to you about SPO. So I know most all of you are supply chain majors. I think there's a few of you that are supply chain minors as well. For all of you, but certainly if you are a supply chain major, I'm going to strongly encourage you to become involved with our supply chain management student organization, SPO. And so this is Rush Week. You see all the organizations there in the Melcher Drum. If you aren't already involved with SPO, well, even if you are, you're probably there at the booth anyway. But if you aren't, drop by and check them out and talk with them. Let me tell you why you need to be involved with SPO. Now, I think it's going to be important for you. I think that if you do not become involved with SPO, I think that you put yourself at a disadvantage compared to your colleagues. And what I mean by getting involved is, now I don't know there's a bunch of SPO folks in here, so I don't know what you guys are going to think about what I say next. But I don't think it's going to be much help to you to go to SPO and pay to become a member and get on their roster so that you can put SPO on your resume. Yes, companies do recognize SPO, and yes, they may help you a little bit, but honestly, that's not going to help you very much to get those best jobs. What I mean by getting involved with SPO is becoming involved in all of the activities that SPO has to offer. If you become involved with SPO, you will have access to the best internships and the best jobs related to supply chain management. When you're looking for those internships and jobs, I see kind of 3 resources for you, and you should definitely use all 3 resources. One resource is your personal networking, like personal networking on LinkedIn. You should certainly all be involved in networking to try to find those jobs and internships. The Rockwell Center is Bauer's career center that's just here for the business school. You should be involved with them. You should be going to events that they have. You should be going to career events, career fairs for them. The thing about the Rockwell, because they're going to have resources for you. The thing about the Rockwell Center is they're going to be using their center to get jobs for all of the majors at Bauer. Nothing wrong with that, but you know that when you go to those job fairs, they're looking for people in accounting and sales and marketing as well as supply chain. The thing about SPO has supply chain focused events. So they will have a resume workshop where you learn to put together a resume that is specifically tailored for a supply chain management career, not a general business resume. They will have networking events where you get to actually network with and speak with the hiring managers. They will have their own job fairs where they only have employers that are looking for supply chain management majors so that you can have that focused attention just for our major. And that's really unique to supply chain. So I'm going to encourage you to take advantage of that. I will also tell you that the students that end up graduating, getting the best internships, the best jobs, and having, and it's not a rule, but it's just a tendency to have some of those successful, exciting careers, are the ones that got involved with SPO. By being involved, I mean not only just going to the events, that's one level of involvement, but the ones that are most successful, they're the ones that are volunteering to help out with the management of SPO. So they're doing things like, you'll see them at the booth. Okay, so they volunteered to show up at the booth and shake hands and tell about the organization. They're the ones that when they have these student organizations, they're the ones that show up a couple of hours early and are unpacking boxes and helping to get set up. They're the ones that are helping out at a career fair, helping the employers to get their stuff in the building and set up for the career fair. So they're the ones that are actually involved in the doing part of what SPO has to offer. And so I encourage you to get really, really involved with them. They have a couple of things going on. Stop by their booth for Rush Week. If you're not already a member, they have an orientation coming up and they have these flyers at their booth. I have these down. You can come grab these after class if you want. But they have spring orientation is Monday. I've been to that before. I'm going again this Monday, so I'll be there. And it's a lot of fun. Big, huge event, very exciting. They're going to tell you about all that the organization has to offer. Then they have an after party at the rooftop, sort of little social event after that. On the back side of this is a calendar event for the first couple of months of the year so that you can see what's going on with SPO. The other one is a flyer on their career fairs, the first career fairs they have. So this is their first spring 2020 career fair coming up in February, and then some career mixers, and they're all listed on here. Of course, their website has information too. So I just wanted to really encourage you. I think that I think it's well worth your time to become involved in that organization for your careers. Well, here we go. There's walking advertisement for SPO right there. Okay, so get involved with that. So let's talk about this video, this Charlie Chaplin video, Modern Times. Okay, so first off, who is it in the video? Who's making the decision about what products to produce, how many to produce? Who does that? Yeah.
The manager?
The manager, right? It's that person that's up in that office that's, putting together puzzles and reading the comics, okay? Right, and so that manager, buzzes down to the manufacturing floor and says, Section 5, speed her up for 1, or whatever it was that the manager said. I don't know exactly what that means, but after the manager said this, then there was an employee that went over to a big wheel and turned it, and the production line got faster, okay? So this manager's making that decision. Now, we're all supply chain majors, and so we can probably guess as to how the manager made the decision to speed up the line. There's probably a few things that may have happened. Maybe that manager is doing some analytics, okay? So maybe they did some forecasting. They looked at the historic demand for products. He forecasted in advance for what needed to be made in the future, and realized that we aren't keeping up. The alignment of demand and capacity isn't there, so we're going to speed up the production line to meet that future demand and build that inventory to get that in place. Maybe that's something that happened. Maybe the manager realized, was just dealing with the finance piece. Maybe they just got finished with a meeting with the CFO and realized, we've got all of this really expensive equipment that is depreciating, and we need to make sure that we utilize that equipment to lower our cost per part. So we're going to speed up the machine so we make more parts, and that way that depreciation is spread out over more parts. It'll lower our cost per part. So that's what we're going to do, speed up that machine. I don't know, in the video, the manager looked at his little video screen there and saw the people working. Maybe what happened was the manager just saw a bunch of people goofing off and said, you know what, these people, they're just goofing off. They just aren't working fast enough. We hired them. We should put them to work. They are not working at their capacity. Let's see what these people can do. Turn up that line because I want to make these people work. Okay, so maybe that's what was going on. Either way, the manager is making the decision about what should be made and when it should be made and how many. And I'm going to be trying to contrast what the mass production management methods from a lean management method, okay? So that's a mass production type of method for managing an organization. The lean method is, and you won't understand this right now, but we'll talk throughout the class about how to do this. We're going to put mechanisms into place to get signals from our customer, visual signals from our customer that tell us exactly what the customer needs, when the customer needs it, and in what quantities the customer needs it, so that we can produce when the customer wants. So really, in a lean system, ideally, the customer will make the decision about what we make, how many we make, and when we make it, and how fast that production line runs. Because we're going to be watching the customer, we're going to be matching what it is that the customer needs, okay? Customer focus, just like I talked about last class session. All right, now these aren't meant to be trick questions either, by the way. These are supposed to be very straightforward, all right? So how does management view employees? Are they looking at them as contributors in the organization, or more like just machines? Yeah, and you can just yell out, machines. It's fun. Yeah. Like sheep, like you saw at the very beginning, right? More like a machine, right? This is really Henry Ford. This is Henry Ford bringing in that the concept of interchangeable parts, like Eli Whitney. So just like you have a bolt and a nut, and if you lose the bolt or if it breaks, you just reach into a box. You got another 1,000 of them in a box. You just reach in, you grab one, and you shove it in the machine. It fits. Okay. So Henry Ford is treating employees just like that interchangeable part. You've got Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin's working on this line, tightening up this bolt. Well, if Charlie Chaplin breaks, or if for some reason Charlie Chaplin is unable to do his job, then it's really easy. You just take him, pull him out, throw him away, He's just disposable. I can just take him out and throw him away. And I've got a whole box of another 1,000 workers waiting. I can just grab one of them and stick them into this job because anybody can turn a bolt. Okay? Treating them like an interchangeable part. In a lean organization, we treat employees, or we view employees differently. We really do view them as contributors to the process. Henry Ford's idea was we're going to have these really narrowly defined jobs, like we'll hire someone that is called an industrial engineer or a process engineer that is the expert to be able to improve a process. And in lean, what we do is we say every employee at the company has the ability, the intellect, to be able to improve processes. So we'll let every company at the employee work to improve processes. They are all needed to be able to make this company work. But you're going to see more about how that works more in the class. How about the employees? What do you see with them? What are they doing with each other?
Fighting.
They're fighting, yeah. They're fighting, they're blaming each other. I mean, we got like physical violence here. They're hitting each other with hammers, they're kicking each other. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff going on, okay? So they are definitely fighting, they're blaming one another. And that's different from in a lean organization. We're gonna set up systems, this is part of creating that culture in these organizations that reinforces employees working together in teams so that they are incentivized to cooperate with one another, to help one another, to support one another. And we'll learn about ways to do that during this class. Did anyone notice, think you noticed why the production line stopped? What happened there? What's that? They were fighting. They were fighting. Yeah, they were fighting some. Yeah, but there was an event that happened. Yeah.
Because they weren't doing their job anymore, so there was bolts going
Yeah.
down that weren't screwed.
Yeah. So Charlie Chaplin was tightening the bolts, right? And then what happened? Did you see that?
He's running behind.
He was falling behind,
And the big guy kicked him.
and the big guy kicked him. Yeah.
And the manager yelled at them.
Yeah. Did you see Charlie Chaplin kind of get drugged down the line? Did you see his wrench get stuck on the bolt?
Yeah.
Do you remember that? You don't remember that? I'll see if I can find it real quick. I usually don't show videos twice, but since no one sees it, saw it, let's see if I can find it. Freeze on me. Little blue circle. Well, dang it. Oh, you like that? We'll try it one more time. Okay, so you'll never see it ever again. Apparently. Are you kidding me? Did no one see his wrench get stuck?
I did.
You
but
did.
I thought
One
you were
person,
talking about
barely.
the fact that a unfinished part actually got through where it was supposed to go.
Yeah, let's.
Whenever you're asking the question.
And now, oops, that's not it. And now I'm just wasting time showing you a video from 100 years ago. Maybe let's just try. Let me just do it from here. Let's see. If I can do this.
62 online is pretty easy.
So far, it's pretty
All right, I'm gonna do it from here. Maybe this will work. Let's see.
Have you taken it yet?
I took it from the summer, so.
You guys are
It was
great.
easy.
It was easy.
Are you really? It's killing me. And now you're all just bored to tears. You're like, worst thing ever. Okay. All right, so we're not going to see the video. Well, that's a bummer.
Excuse me.
Yeah, that's my announcement that I should be done with this by now. All right, frustration. Okay. We're skipping it. We won't skip the discussion, but we'll skip the thing. Okay, so here we go. You ready? I'll pantomime it. Here's what happened. Okay? Production line's going along. Charlie Chaplin's tightening the bolts. Tighten, 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 tighten. Uh-oh. The wrench got stuck on a nut, but the production line's still going along. He's trying to get it off. He's trying to yank it off. He's trying to yank it off. There's a big door here with gears and stuff doing this inside. Charlie Chaplin's about to get yanked into the machine. He's hanging on to this thing, and he's about to get drug into the machine. Are you following along with me? And his buddy, to save Charlie Chaplin from getting drug into the machine, his buddy smacks him in the hand with the hammer to make him let go of the wrench so he doesn't get drug into the machine. Is that okay? That's what happened. All right, and if you actually watch the end of the video, he eventually does get drug into the machine, which is, Charlie Chaplin, it's supposed to be comedy. It actually turns out to be funny, okay? It's not tragic, okay? So, okay, so he's about to get drug in the machine, and so they stop the line, right? Because Charlie Chaplin's about to get drug in the machine, so they stop. Are you guys following along with me?
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I know it was like boring as all get out with trying to get the video running, but follow along with me here, right? So he's about to get drug in the machine. They stop the line. They say, stop! And so now it's the supervisor's job to keep that line running. So the supervisor comes running out right away, okay? So the supervisor runs up to Charlie Chaplin, and now it's silent film, so we have no idea what the manager says, but we're gonna have to guess, okay? But it's silent movie, so there's no wrong answers, just whatever you perceive. So the manager runs up to Charlie Chaplin and does like this. And so what do you think that the manager asks Charlie Chaplin? What happened? Okay, what happened? And what was Charlie Chaplin's response?
The other guy's fault.
It's his fault. He hit me in the hand with the hammer. I didn't stop the line. He's hitting me with a hammer. He points to the guy. And so now the manager goes over, the supervisor goes over to the guy, Charlie Chaplin's coworker, and he does, so I'll pantomime this too, so that you can see if you missed it in the video. And he goes up to the guy and he does this. Like that. That's what he did in the video. So what do you think he says? He goes up to the guy. What happened, Charlie Chaplin? I'll tell you what happened, why the line stopped. This guy just hit me in the hand with the hammer. And so he goes up to the guy and he says, somebody help me. Well, he's not fired yet because he kept working. So he says what?
Don't hit him with the hammer.
Don't hit your coworker with a hammer again. And if I ever catch you hitting your coworker in the hand with the hammer again, then you're fired. Okay, so that's what he says to the coworker, right? So he goes in and he says, you know, hey, don't be hitting your coworker in the hand with the hammer. That stops our production line. We got to keep this thing rolling. Don't let it happen again. And if you do, you're fired. Let's get this line back up and running. And then the line starts and they're producing again. Okay, so the supervisor came in, fixed the problem. The way the supervisor fixed the problem is he found out who caused the problem, and then he goes in and he's going to threaten, yell, or give instructions somehow to the person to try to change the person to keep that from ever happening again. Now, because the supervisor showed up and did all this yelling and threatening, is Charlie Chaplin's wrench ever going to get stuck on a bolt again? Yes, it will. And when it does, what is Charlie Chaplin going to do? Okay, now the supervisor has come around saying, you know, whoever's stopping this line is going to get fired. When Charlie Chaplin's wrench gets stuck on the nut again, is Charlie Chaplin going to say, excuse me, supervisor, my wrench keeps getting stuck on the nut. I think something needs to happen here because I'm having problems with this. Is that what Charlie Chaplin's going to say? What's Charlie Chaplin going to do?
Blame someone else.
He's going to find someone else to blame, or he's going to find a way to hide the problem so that the supervisor never finds out about it. Very much mass production type mindset, perspective culture. Lean organization, completely different. The problem happens. The wrench gets stuck on the bolt. The lean manager comes in. We have systems in place in lean organizations to highlight when problems happen. You don't have to know the definition of the term, but one of them is called an andon. An andon is just a signal for when a problem is occurring. And so the signal occurs and the manager will rush in, the supervisor will rush in. And because the supervisor knows that processes are inputs that are transformed into outputs, and I have some sort of anomaly, some sort of problem that is an output that I don't like, what is it that I need to fix? What is it that I need to change?
Process.
I need to change the process. It's not the person. So I don't come in saying whose fault is it. Everyone in the system knows where the problem occurred and who was there when the problem occurred. It was Charlie Chaplin and Charlie Chaplin's wrench. But everyone gathers around and says, the problem is Charlie Chaplin's wrench keeps getting stuck on the bolt. Great, let's figure out what's happening. How is this occurring? What technique are we using to tighten bolts? Yeah, what does the wrench look like? What does the nut look like? You know, how is this all configured? How can we change the process to make it easier for Charlie Chaplin to tighten that bolt and so that the wrench doesn't get stuck on it anymore? We evaluated at a root cause analysis, which I'll teach you during this class, to get rid of the problem of Charlie Chaplin's wrench getting stuck on the nut so that Charlie Chaplin's wrench doesn't get stuck on the nut anymore and Charlie Chaplin's job becomes easier. Okay? So now we won't have that problem. Then we get the line back up and running. Okay? Now does that mean that the production line will never stop again? Does that mean that the production line will never stop?
No.
No, it will stop again because there's other problems. When those problems pop up, we're going to have signals to show us where those are so that we can dive in and fix those problems again. That's very much more like a lean type perspective. Okay, good, did I get that? Okay, awesome. So let's talk about how a lean mindset plays in with these lean tools. So you can have two companies. Remember I said most companies want to be associated with lean. So when you go to them, you say, you know, yeah, they'll say, yes, we're practicing lean or we like lean. But I told you that very few companies, probably less than 10%, are actually practicing lean at a deep level. So you have a lot of companies that are practicing these tools. You can have two companies very similar practicing the tools, but yet they operate very, very differently because one has a lean mindset and one doesn't. So let's talk through this. So now this isn't meant to be a trick question either. This is meant to be very straightforward, so you should be able to get this. I'm going to teach you during this class a lot of different tools, techniques to be able to improve processes. Okay, they're lean tools. Let's say that there's a company that says, okay, all those tools that you learned in 4367, we don't do any of that stuff. We're just not, all those things that are lean tools, techniques, we're not doing any of it. Okay, so they don't do any of the lean tools, and the managers and the employees think and act like the Charlie Chaplin video. How would you think that I classify that company? Would I classify that company as a lean company or as a what I'm calling a mass production mindset company? Mass production mindset company, okay, so that's what that is, all right? What if you have a company that uses the lean tools and techniques that I teach in this class, and I know I haven't fully explained what a lean mindset is, but just kind of go with me. The managers and the workers think about and act in their processes differently than the Charlie Chaplin video, and they exhibit a lean perspective or a lean mindset. If the managers and employees have a lean mindset and they practice by using the lean tools, would I classify this company as a mass production or as a lean company? Lean company. This is a lean company, okay? Not trick questions, all right? Now, here's the thing. You can have a company that uses the lean tools, and when you use lean tools, you'll get benefits from them, so they use the lean tools. But if the managers and employees at the company are thinking and behaving like the employees in the Charlie Chaplin video, then this is not a lean organization. Even though they're using the lean tools, this is a mass production organization. Because you're gonna have all of the same problems that you have in the Charlie Chaplin video, you'll have. So you use the lean tools, but the outcome is still gonna be employees that are competing with each other, employees that are blaming one another, employees that are hiding or suppressing problems, and managers that are threatening, managers that aren't solving problems, that are just jumping in and trying to threaten people to get performance to improve. So you're gonna have all the same outcomes that you get here, okay? Now, this quadrant actually doesn't exist. And the reason for that is if you have a lean production mindset, if you think about processes, quality and productivity differently, then you will use the lean tools. And I don't even have to teach you the lean tools. Most of the lean tools you would probably think up on your own just by having a lean production mindset, just by thinking about processes differently. Okay? In fact, many of you will. Many of you will come up with different tools or techniques to improve processes just by thinking about those processes differently using things that I'm teaching you in the class. And those are very much just a lean tool, just like anything else that I'm going to teach you in this class. But if you think about processes differently, you will end up using the tools. So it's not like you won't reject the tools if you're thinking differently. Right? Different way of thinking about things. And so the real difference between a company that we would call a lean organization and a mass production organization is not the things that the company does, it's more how the managers and employees in the organization think. It's more about what happens inside their heads than it is what you see, which is why it's really hard to go on a plant tour or a site visit of a company and tell whether or not that company is practicing lean, because all you're seeing when you go on a plant tour or site visit is external things. You need to get insight into what is happening inside people's heads to really understand whether or not the company is lean. So that's what we're going to investigate today, is what goes on inside of a lean manager's head. So there's a lot of different metaphors, kind of ways of explaining this. This is just one of those ways, and so I'm going to spend some time talking through this. This is called the organism perspective. And the idea here is that you have it's a metaphor where you have your organization is represented by an animal, okay? And then all the different parts of that animal, so the eyes, the ears, the legs, the paws, the teeth, all the different parts of the animal, the heart, the brain, all the different parts of the animal represent the different functions that are in the organization. And so then the idea there is that the animal is trying to accomplish things just like an organism tries to accomplish things, and the way the organization accomplishes things is all the parts have to coordinate together. They all have an individual job, but they also have to coordinate and support one another in order for the organization to be successful. That's kind of the idea there, okay? But then everything in this metaphor kind of has a place. So the animal lives within a habitat. That's the market environment. The organism, the animal, has competitors that it's competing against. It also has suppliers, which are the other animals that are its prey, that give it the the energy, the sustenance, the supplies, the things that it needs to be able to grow and move and work. That's kind of where all metaphors, no metaphor is perfect. This is kind of where it falls down, because we don't actually go out and eat our suppliers, right? But the idea is that you're getting the materials, the resources that you need to be able to function from suppliers, okay? So there's some sort of a relationship there. So all of the different pieces go together in this metaphor. So we're going to use a cougar as our organism through this, because we're all cougs, all right? So let's get started. As you think about this metaphor, this is kind of how a lean manager will think about an organization, and it has implications for how we behave in our organization, how we manage. So first, process optimization. So let me explain what process optimization is first. So you took SCM 4330, the Excel business modeling class. You remember this class? Okay, right? And so what happened in that class is you had data, and you had some understanding of how an organization was configured and how the relationships between it were configured, and you created some mathematical relationships, put that together in a math model. And then what you did is you put it in there, and then you clicked solver. You remember that? And then it went and it calculated, and it figured out the optimal way of configuring that organization to either maximize your profit or maximize your revenue or minimize your cost or minimize time or whatever it was. Do you remember that?
Yes.
That's an optimization, okay? So now let's think through this with the cougar. If you are a cougar, if you were the cougar, would you want to use process optimization? In other words, let's say the cougar is hunting rabbits, okay? I don't know if cougars actually hunt rabbits, but can we go with cougars hunting rabbits?
Yeah.
Is that okay? So the cougar wants to hunt rabbits. If it was possible, would the cougar want to collect data on the rabbits, collect data on where they were, what their movement patterns were, all of those things, put it into an Excel spreadsheet, and then click, solver to figure out how the cougar could hunt for rabbits to minimize the cougar's effort but maximize the outcome? Would the cougar want to use that sort of technology?
Yes.
Yes, the cougar would, okay? So let's imagine what happens. So the cougar does that, collects the data on the rabbits, figures out the cougar, if the cougar hides behind this particular rock at like 6:37 in the morning, and then just without looking leaps over the rock at 6:37 in the morning, then there will be rabbits on the other side, and the cougar can like get a couple of rabbits both at once and have breakfast, okay? And then will have minimized effort to get the maximum outcome, maximum profit as a result of that. So that's great, right? So the cougar just did that. Okay, so the cougar thinks this is like the best thing ever, process optimization. So the cougar gets a couple of its friends and goes back to that same rock. Next morning, 6:37, hides behind the rock, says, watch this, watch this. And the cougar jumps over the rock at 6:37. What happens on the other side of the rock at 6:37? What happens? There's no rabbits. Where'd the rabbits go? Okay, were there only 2 rabbits in the whole forest? And he ate them both? Why are there no rabbits on the other side of the rock?
Because they're also improving their process because they don't want to be eaten.
Because they learned, right? I know. You know, Cousin Bunny just got eaten yesterday here at 6:37. I am not going by that rock anymore. And they find another place to go. Does this make sense? One of the features, one of the assumptions of optimization is that the environment is static, that it's not changing. But the truth is that our market environment is changing. Our competitors are changing. Our own capabilities are changing. Our workforce is changing. Our suppliers are changing. What the customer wants is changing. And so what's needed in the future is going to be different than what's needed today. I'm not saying with Lean that we don't use optimization. We do. But we use optimization to get us into a position that's close to optimal. But then what's more important to us than optimization in Lean is building flexibility into our organization so that when the market environment changes, when what the customer does changes, or when our competitors change, it's more important for us to be flexible to be able to do other things, okay? So flexibility is more important to us than optimization. Next one is supply chain relationships and perspective on short-term profits. So with our suppliers, okay? And again, like, the rabbits as a supplier is not a good, it's where the whole thing falls apart, because we don't eat our suppliers, okay? But kind of gloss over that and let's talk through this analogy. If I'm a cougar, do I want the population of rabbits to be strong and healthy, or do I want it to be sick and weak? The population of rabbits, what do I want? I want the population of the rabbits to be strong and healthy, because the stronger and healthier they are, the easier it is going to be for me to be healthy as well, okay? So Lean organizations, I want my suppliers to be healthy, all right? So let's say that I'm walking through the woods and I walk up to a clearing, and it turns out in the middle of the clearing is like the rabbit family reunion. And like every rabbit in the entire forest is in the clearing all at once, and they're all partying down in the middle of the forest. And like I've got all my cougar friends around us, and we're looking, and we're like, we can just get them all right now. Like they're all there. This would be so easy, right? This is a market opportunity for us. We can maximize our profits right away at this spot, chow down on a ton of rabbits, and it's gonna be super easy. Should the cougars leap into the clearing and kill off all of the rabbits? No. Why not? It'd be easy. Why not? What's that? For the future. Well, what are they going to eat in the future? Now they got to change suppliers. Now they got to find somebody new because they just killed off one of their sources, right? This actually happens at organizations. There's an article here. The title is General Motors Seeking to Get Equipment from Supplier in Bankruptcy Case. And so here's the story. Here's what happened. General Motors had a supplier of a unique part that only this supplier could provide. They had some technology, some equipment that was unique that they had developed to be able to provide this part. And this supplier only had a few customers. General Motors was their largest customer. They had been General Motors' customer for a while. And what General Motors did is what most mass production manager type do, is they were squeezing that supplier. So they would say, every 6 months they were looking for price decreases. They said, you've got to be able to deliver your things faster. You've got to be able to improve your quality. And all the time, we want price concessions. We want you to store more inventory for us, not charge us until we actually use it. And so you take on all of that cost, plus we're going to squeeze you on your profits because we want to be more profitable. So trying General Motors trying to improve their profitability by beating up on this little supplier. Well, so they did it, and eventually the supplier went bankrupt. They just couldn't handle it anymore. Essentially, the cougar went in and ate all the rabbits in the forest. All right. So this supplier's in bankruptcy. In bankruptcy, you liquidize your assets and try to pay off as many of the debts as you can. So that's what the supplier's doing. They're selling off all of their equipment. And so General Motors says, okay, supplier went bankrupt, it's unfortunate, but what we'll do is we'll just go in and we'll buy off that equipment, and then we'll use that equipment and produce our own parts, whatever that happens to be. So they go to the supplier and they say, hey, sorry you're in bankruptcy, but we're here, we'll be willing to buy off that equipment from you, and so that we can use that. What do you think the managers at this company said to GM?
No.
Yeah, they said, no, we would rather burn, scrap, destroy this equipment that we developed than sell it to you, the company that put us into bankruptcy. And so then all of a sudden GM is scrambling to find a source for this stuff, trying to figure out how they're going to keep running because of it. Okay, so it actually happens. Let me tell you a different story from a lean perspective. So I was working for a company once, and we had a supplier that had been successfully delivering parts to us, a component part that we used in our product. They had been delivering them for a while, and then all of a sudden something happened, and the supplier was delivering these parts, but the parts had a real subtle defect. It wasn't a really big defect, but the problem was that when we used that component in the thing that we were making, the thing that we were making wouldn't fit together and wouldn't work properly, and so we were having to make adjustments. It was like really messing up our processes, okay? Will you tell me, logically, any company, if this happened to any company, what would a company do with their supplier? What would they do with their supplier? The company has been providing good parts. All of a sudden, they're sending us stuff, and there's defects. So what should I do as a company?
Terminate.
What am I going to do?
Find a new supplier.
Find a new supplier right away?
Talk to the,
I'm going to tell them. Does that make sense? Company gives you a defective part. I'm going to tell them that they gave me a defective part. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we did. Okay, so we said, hey, supplier, you used to deliver these things that were great, but now they're not, and here's what's going on. We're going to send these back to you so you can see what the defect is, but you got to fix it in your process, so you can get us good parts. And they kept sending us defective parts. And this went a couple of times. We kept sending them back. They kept sending us defective parts. Okay, now what would a traditional mass production company do?
Terminate the supplier relationship.
Let's terminate that relationship. Let's fire the supplier, right? Just like Charlie Chaplin, just like an interchangeable part. Supplier, it's just like a bolt in the system. It's not working anymore. Take that out. We'll reach into our box of other suppliers and we'll get another supplier that can do that work. Okay, that's what a typical company would do. That's not what our company did. What our company did is they sent me to go to the supplier to spend a week at the supplier on our dime. So they paid for me, paid for my travel, paid for me while I was there, did not charge the supplier a thing. And then while I was there, what I did is walked through their process with them, showed them how they could evaluate their process, showed them how they could use some tools to improve their process, found out what the root cause of the problem was, fixed the problem with their process so that they could deliver us good quality parts. And this was all on our dime, okay? And what the end result was, then I came back, and what the end result was, the company was able to provide us good quality parts. But not only that, but they improved their process for their other customers as well, so that supplier got healthier as a result of that. And they learned some tools and techniques so that when problems popped up again, they would have some knowledge or tools and techniques to go and improve their processes and keep them healthy, okay? And our company did that on our dime. We didn't get anything up from that other than finally we got good parts from the supplier. Right? Now, let's fast forward a little bit. Later on, we had a customer that wanted an expedited shipment. So they said, hey, and you know what happens when a customer wants a rush order, they're willing to pay extra, right? So we're able to get a lot of profit from our customer here. Our customers, saying, hey, we want a rush job. Great, we'll get it to you, but we're gonna charge you extra. Okay, great, I'm willing to pay. Get it to us. Well, the problem was we didn't have enough inventory of this component from the supplier. And usually, I forget what it was, but it was something like, 6 or 8 weeks to get this component from this particular supplier, typically. So we call up the supplier and we say, hey, we've got this customer, we've got a rush order, we want to be able to meet this, but we don't have enough parts and we need them this week. Can you do anything for us? What can you do? Now, usually what a company does is when, like I said, when there's a rush order, right? You say you charge extra. Okay, so what did this company do? What did our supplier do? What do you think they did? What do you think they did?
We got you the parts without extra charge.
Yeah, they said, sure thing. Yeah, we'll be glad to help you out. We'll have those later this week, no problem. Because now all of a sudden, it's not this supplier-customer relationship, it's a partnership that we have. We're helping one another be healthy. We're helping one another to succeed. We're sort of building that culture in that supplier network. It's a different way of looking at things, okay? Let's look at identifying process and quality problems. Let's make sure I'm getting this. Okay, so if we are, let's say the cougar's walking through the forest and brushes by something, and the cougar feels something in its leg. It's like a thorn or a splinter. Just got stuck with a thorn or a splinter, like in its leg. Okay, so you know how this works. You've gotten a thorn or a splinter before, right? I mean, it's painful, but it's not like you're disabled. Okay, I mean, it's like just you can still go and do whatever you need to do. It just hurts a lot. Okay. Now the cougar, at that point, let's say the cougar sees a couple of rabbits and could go run get the rabbits right now. Okay, so that's profit that they could get right away. The cougar just got the thorn or the splinter. Should the cougar ignore the thorn and the splinter and just go ahead and get that rabbit, chase down that rabbit, or should the cougar stop, ignore the rabbit, and deal with the thorn or splinter right away? What should the cougar do? The cougar should deal with the thorn or the splinter right away. What if the cougar goes and chases the rabbit right now? What's going to happen to the thorn or the splinter? It's going to get worse. It's going to get deeper embedded. It's going to be harder to take out, right? It could get infected. Worse things could happen as a result of that, right? So the best thing for the cougar to do is to stop and pull the splinter out. This is the principle behind problems. When there's a problem in our processes, we treat our companies the same way. There's a problem. What we're going to do is stop the process right away, and we're going to figure out what the problem is and remove that problem. We're going to find a root cause to that problem right now. A couple of reasons for that. One is the easiest time to fix a problem is as soon as it occurs. Instead of letting it kind of fester and keep going, if we can fix it right now, that's the easiest time. The other thing is that when we notice the problem, we are probably very close to the source of the problem, and it becomes a lot easier for us to do problem solving and figure out ways of avoiding that problem in the future. Just like with the cougar stops right away. When the cougar goes and chases down the rabbit, then looks at the splinter, it's harder to take out. But then also the cougar can't remember exactly when or how he got the splinter. But if the cougar stops right away, the cougar can look around and say, well, here's this bush with thorns on it that has red berries. I should probably stay away from bushes with red berries. And it's a way for them to improve their process to avoid that problem in the future. Next one, human resource policy and continuous improvement. So, couple of things here. I felt like I was good. I told you everything in here. Okay, good. So a couple of situations that can happen where there's a couple of situations that can happen in companies where you don't need as many people. So one example is in an economic downturn. Okay, so like in 2008 when there was the economic downturn, what did we hear about companies in the news? Bunches of layoffs, okay? All of a sudden our demand goes down. We don't need as many people. So here we go, we're gonna lay off or fire a bunch of people. Traditional mass production mindset. Same thing happens when you make a process improvement. Hey, we're gonna use this tool or technique that Dr. Miller just showed in the class that's really powerful. We found a way to do the same job that we've been doing, but now it's easier and it takes half as many people, half the people. So traditional mass production management mindset, what are we gonna do with the people that we don't need? We lay them off or we fire them, okay? That's a traditional mass production mindset, not from a lean perspective, okay? What we have from a lean perspective is we look at our employees, we really do look at them as valuable resources. We spent money and effort to hire them to be a part of our organization. And so we want them to be a part of our organization. We want them to stay a part of our organization. It's very expensive to hire and fire workers. My wife works for Shell, and Shell kind of has a rule of thumb regarding, now not their top executive people, but just most of the workers that are at Shell. They say that their cost of onboarding, bringing someone on, is about $100,000. Doesn't really matter what the person's job is. And that's not their salary, that's not a hiring bonus. That's just getting them onboarded. It's the interview process, it's the selection process, it's the initial training, quality errors that may happen, during that onboarding process, all of that stuff. It's very expensive to get rid of people and then hire them back. So in Lean, we try to avoid that. In an economic downturn, for instance, in 2008, there was a big economic downturn. Companies were laying off. The news outlets like the Wall Street Journal were really shocked that companies like Toyota and others that were practicing Lean did not lay off their workers. They kept them on and kept paying them, even in the economic downturn. And what were they doing with their employees during that time? They weren't building cars, so what were they doing? They were working on improving the process. They were going into training, they were learning some of the tools, techniques that we're talking about in this class. They went into their processes, they figured out ways of improving those processes, developing them, so that when we came out of the recession and now we were building cars again, producing things again, while the other companies were scrambling to hire workers and train them and dealing with onboarding issues and quality problems, getting them onboarded, Toyota and other companies already had an experienced workforce ready to go, working in better processes than when the economic downturn first started. Okay. Same thing if you are improving a process. Now I hope that I'm going to try to gauge, if you understand this. I hope you're going to get this. In Lean, we want the employees to help us improve. We want to use the employees' intellect to be able to improve our processes. So we'll do something like, let's see, there's 6 people here in this row. So let's say that there's the 6 of you, okay, and I know some of your friends because you're both wearing SPO stuff here, okay? So there's 6 people in this row, you're all working on the same process, or you're process workers, and I say, hey, in your process, I'm gonna train you in how to improve your process, and so I'll put you through this little training, but then I want you to go back to your process, and I wanna see if you can figure out a better way of doing that job, okay? I'm gonna leave that up to you, I'm gonna give you that responsibility, and you say, this is great, like, they're trusting us to do this. And so you go into your job, the 6 of you, and you figure out a way to improve that process. And then you come back to me and you're excited and you say, I can't believe it, this worked. We actually were able to figure out how to get twice as much done with fewer resources. We can now produce more in this process. It's easier, the quality is better, and get this, it only takes 3 people to do this job instead of 6 people to do this job. We did a rock star job on this. I mean, this would be great, right? Okay? And so then, what if I said, okay, that is great work, guys. Okay, the 3 of you, you're fired. Okay, you're fired, get out of here, I'm not paying you anymore. Now, the 3 of you, let's go improve some more processes. Are you excited about going to improve some more processes for your friends? Huh? You are? Are you excited about doing that?
I wouldn't be excited.
Why wouldn't you be excited?
My friends just got cut off.
My friends just got fired, and if I go and help to improve those processes, my other friends are going to get fired. Does that make sense? And so what's going to happen is employees are not going to improve. They are not going to help do that. They are going to avoid that. They're going to say, no, I don't want to be involved. Or they will go into those processes and they'll say, yeah, we looked at it, couldn't find a way to improve it, not going to work, okay? Or they'll purposely slow down processes so that they can't be improved, okay? That's not what we want. So what we do is typically in a lean organization, we'll have what's called a no layoff policy. And what that says is if we make an improvement that reduces our need for people, we will not fire the people that we don't need. We will keep them. And then we do creative things with them. We'll talk more about this later in the class. But I mean, one of those things is continuous improvement. We can take those people that we aren't using in that process and use them to go help improve other processes. And then the assumption is if we are improving our processes so we are better able to create value for our customers, what should happen to demand in the future? Demand should increase, and when demand increases, we're going to need those people. So why would I improve a process, fire a bunch of those people, just to have customers increase demand and us have to rehire those people? We'll just keep them on and keep improving. Okay, so that's the idea there. Same thing when you have an employee that doesn't seem to fit in the organization. Maybe I'll, let me see where I am in the notes to see if I want to go through this example or not. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing if you have an employee that doesn't fit in an organization. Employee that doesn't fit is like if the cougar is, I don't know, if the cougar's walking around trying to smell out where the rabbits are, okay? And so the cougar's walking around going, hey, Not smelling any rabbits over here. Can't smell any rabbits here. I don't know. I mean, I hired these smellers to do the smelling job, and they just aren't smelling anything. Maybe I should send them to a weekend training. Okay, so the Cougar sends the smellers off to a weekend training. They come back, they still can't smell. Traditional mass production manager. If you had an employee that you hired for a job, they weren't cutting it in that job. You looked at the process. It's, every other worker's getting it. This one employee's not getting it. So you send the employee to a training. They come back from the training. They still can't get the job. They still don't get it. Traditional mass production manager, what do? You fire the employee. Okay, now look, I'm not saying in lean that we never fire people. Okay, there are people that get fired in a lean organization. I'm just saying that's not the first thing that we jump to. One thing that we do is we look and we say, maybe they're in the wrong job. We saw some value in them during that hiring process, and we onboarded them, got them a part of our organization. Maybe it's that we're asking them to do a job that is not their job. It's not their thing that is really going to be the thing that uses their skills and abilities. And so we might try them in a different role. I had a company once where we did this. We had a production process. We hired somebody in, and they weren't getting it. And we tried training them. We tried all kinds of different things. Just wasn't working out. It turned out we had an in-the-office job where we were calling customers, sort of doing follow-up calls with customers, and we were going to hire somebody for that position. And we said, let's try them out there and see what happens. We pulled them in to do that, and they were a rock star at that job. They just did a great job with that, and our sales went up as a result of that. And so the first thing that we're going to do before we just get rid of people like they're an interchangeable part that we can just throw away, like they're disposable, we're going to try to find a spot for them in our company. There might be a different position that we haven't thought of for them. Okay, so no layoff policy. So I think this is a summary of that organism viewpoint. So these are the things that we do. So I talked through those sorts of things. So what we're going to do in our organization, we need to build this sort of a lean mindset into our workers to build that culture in our organization. And people will say often, well, how do you create culture in an organization? We're going to talk through lots of ways, but this is really the source of building culture in an organization. As a manager, you have to think about your employees differently. Now this is it's sort of an article handout for today's lecture that will be on the exam. It's from an article called Lean Behaviors by Bob Emiliani. I've condensed the article here so you don't have to read the whole thing, but I want you to read it. The idea there is that what the manager thinks about employees translates into how the manager behaves, which is going to end up creating the culture in the organization. And I'll just let you know, in the practice problems section of Blackboard, there's a matrix of mass production beliefs, and then the behaviors that result from that, the lean beliefs and the lean behaviors that result from that. And this is kind of what's going to be on the exam. I want you to understand the difference between a mass production mindset and a lean mindset, and then this handout kind of exemplifies that. To help you in studying this, in the practice problem section, there is a quiz. It's a not for credit quiz, but it's kind of like automated flashcards, so you can practice identifying whether it's a lean mindset or a mass production mindset. But let me explain to you how this kind of works. So let's talk through it from the Charlie Chaplin video perspective. So the manager in that video has a belief, a mindset. In that video, the manager says, you know what, we've got this assembly line, and if every employee on the line does their job perfectly, every employee along the line does their job perfectly, then we won't have any mistakes and we won't have any problems, right? I mean, if every employee does their job right, then there won't be any problems and the line won't stop. Well, all of a sudden, there's a problem and the line has stopped. Well, because the manager believes that if every employee does their job perfectly, there won't be any problems, there must be some employee that didn't do their job perfectly. So the manager goes down and says, whose fault is this? Where are they? And then when he finds them, the manager says, you should do your job perfectly. And if you can't do your job perfectly, I'll find someone who can. We'll fire you and we'll get someone else in here because we just need employees that do the job right. So do it right. That's what the manager says to fix that problem. By doing that, then that creates an organizational policy, sometimes formal, most of the time informal. In Charlie Chaplin's case, the policy is, if there is a problem, the manager is going to come and try to find out who created the problem and then potentially fire that person. So if you encounter a problem, if a problem happens when you're doing a job, you better find a way to hide the problem, or you better find a way to blame the problem on someone else, or before the problem happens, you should find a way to sabotage someone else's work so that the manager pays more attention to them than pays attention to you. So it makes the mistake worse for the other person than for you, so that it draws attention to them so they get fired, because you've got to protect yourself so you don't get fired. That's the policy that's created. And that creates the culture in the organization. A culture of hiding problems, of fighting with employees, of being in competition with others, of sabotaging work, of hiding things, not being honest with management. That's the culture that's created, and it all came from what the manager believed. I think there's probably some of you that have experienced this. This would be a company, if you've ever been part of a company where you can recognize it, where you go to work and the employees, back behind a door somewhere, back behind closed doors or during break time, they're sort of huddling around and they're going, man, this place just sucks to work at. I can't wait till I don't have to work there anymore. Like, this is the worst. They treat you so bad. They don't know what's going on. This is just awful. It makes me just not even care. You know what I did the other day? I did this. I stick it to them. Anyone worked at a company that was like that? Okay, so a few of you have. I guarantee there will be, before your career's over, there will be many more of you that will have. Okay, did you have a question?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah, so you have too, yeah. But you can recognize that is a bad culture, but it's built on the manager's beliefs. Now let's walk through that from a lean perspective, what a lean manager would believe. Am I okay? Yeah, I'm okay on time. Okay. Let's look through what a lean manager would believe. So a lean manager would say, well, I know my processes are inputs that are transformed into outputs, and if there's a problem or an output that I don't like, there must be something wrong with the process. So now there's a problem. So the manager jumps in and says, okay, there's a problem with the process. Let's go to the process experts, the people that are closest to the process. Hey, people that are closest to the process, the people that are working on it, what happened? Oh, well, this is what happened. Charlie Chaplin's wrench got stuck on the nut. Oh, okay, well, great. So tell me, what's going on there? I mean, what's the real problem, and why is that happening, and what ideas do you have? Let's fix this problem. I'm going to make this easier. Bless you. I'm going to make this easier for you. And so the manager goes in, solves the problem, finds a way to do the job easier, finds a way to solve that problem and make it better. And now the employee's job is easier. They can produce more at higher quality, and that job is easier, and they don't make mistakes. It's a better job for them. Okay, that creates the culture that says, when I encounter a problem, the best thing for me to do would be to call its attention to the manager, because the manager is going to come in and help me fix the problem and is going to end up making my job easier so that my work is easier and so that I'm better able to do my job. And so when I have a problem, I'm going to bring that up because I know that people want to hear that, because I know people are interested in coming and helping me to become better. And that creates a positive culture in the organization. All right? So I want to explain to you how this works, how this culture building works, and why it's important to build this culture into the organization. I hope you remember last class I talked about the lean house, and I said there's two primary pillars in the lean house. One is continuous improvement, and that's the tools and techniques that I'm going to be teaching in this class. The other side is respect for people, which plays heavily into the culture of the organization. And I told you that you have to have both. We have these very powerful tools, but if you don't have respect for people, then the whole thing falls apart, okay? I want to demonstrate for you how this works, because most all of you are going to become managers, you're going to become supervisors, you're going to become in charge of parts of your companies or whole companies, and you're going to want to improve those companies, you're going to want to make changes, you're going to want that continuous improvement piece. I want to show you how, if you don't have the respect for people piece, it's not going to work. So we're going to do a demonstration. Now I'm just going to tell you, I think it's an insightful demonstration. I'm not going to force you to participate, but I will tell you that you won't get hurt in the demonstration, okay? So I'll walk you through it, and I'd like for you to participate if you're willing to go along. So here's how it works. You pull out your cell phone, and you unlock your screen. Okay, I've got mine going here. Unlock your screen, and then you swipe over to the settings on your phone, and you click on the settings icon, whatever that is on your phone. Okay, so I've got mine up here, all right? Next one I want you to do is, for a moment, I want you to trade phones with the person next to you. Okay, so they've got your phone, you've